Hello, good morning. This is Brother Chukwemeka. Brothers and sisters, I've not done a video in like 2 months, and the reason is simply because I don't have a good microphone, so I didn't want to be doing videos that people will not hear nor understand properly. Luckily for me, a good friend of mine actually bought me a microphone, so now I have like two microphones, and hopefully the video quality will be better now. However, I have to point out the microphone can improve the voice quality in my videos. However, it cannot change my accent. So those of you who had problems with my accent, you're just gonna have to deal with that. So today, I want to discuss the origin of the Sabbath. The reason this lesson is coming today is because I had a conversation in one of my videos, the comment section in one of my videos, um, with a sister, and we were arguing if Abraham kept the Sabbath or not. And my position is very clear. In fact, let me summarize my position right now for those who want to see the end of the video or not. Abraham did not keep the Sabbath because as at the time Abraham existed, there was no such thing as keeping the 7 day Sabbath. Okay, so it's not a sin. If you look at my video in which I talked about why our African ancestors may have forgotten the Sabbath, I laid down things that people start doing that the Most High now endorsed. As at the time of Abraham, the keeping the Sabbath had not started. No, it had not started in the planet. What was kept was the feast days. Remember, the feast days was also called Sabbath, but not the 7 day Sabbath. So today I want to go into details in this and explain it because it seems I wasn't making my point, getting my point across to the sister in the comment section of that video. You either believe that we are the Hebrews of the Bible, you either believe that the children of Abraham are Africans and they are in Africa, or you don't believe. You cannot stand on both sides of the fence. It's not possible. You cannot say, okay, we may be related to, or no, we are definitely not related to the Neanderthals that claim our identity. We are not related in any way. It doesn't matter how far they have gone. It doesn't matter how much language they have invented, how much names they have changed to sound biblical. It does not matter. You either believe that we are the people or you don't believe that. This is very important to understand this video. Now, if you look at my videos, and I've done a number of videos here, people who have seen them who understand what I'm saying. The children of Abraham are scattered across Africa, from East Africa to West Africa. These are the descendants of the biblical Abraham. From all the lineage, from the lineage of Ishmael to the lineage of Isaac, to the children of Isaac, to the children of Ishmael, and Ishmael had lots and lots of sons. These people, they currently live in Africa. Now, what I ask myself is, how come none of them kept the 7 day Sabbath? Before I did that video, which is what I'm showing here, that video on, there were actually 2-part series in that video, and I'll recommend anyone who wants to understand this to go back and look at that video. All these descendants of Abraham here in Africa, not one of them in their original tradition kept the 7 day Sabbath. Why? And the answer is simple. The 7 day Sabbath was not kept by their father. These people, these children of Abraham, not just the Igbos actually, but the Bantus, the Lembas, the whatever group you call, if you look at their custom, you find out that they keep the feast that Abraham kept, such as the Feast of Tabernacles, the 7-day Feast of Tabernacles. They kept the new moons. They keep this feast. They still do, but they don't keep the 7-day Sabbath. That's because their father Abraham didn't keep it. So I ask myself, which is the most likely case? Is it that the Sabbath is a fraud? Is it that it was something that was added into our culture by the heathens? And anybody who understands the Bible will know that the Bible has been added into it. A lot of things have been added in the Bible, and I've been discussing this a number of times in my videos. You can go and look at some of my videos in which I have stated the things that were added by the pagans, by those who transcribed the Bible from our culture. They added a number of things to lead us astray. So I ask myself, is it possible that the 7-day Sabbath is one of those things that were added? And when I did that video, the conclusion I came to is that what happened is that we may have forgotten to keep the 7-day Sabbath. Is more likely that we forgot to keep it than keeping it. And it's very easy for us to forget to keep it, because if you remember, according to the scriptures, our people were mainly herdsmen, shepherds, who keep animal. You can't tell your animal, look, you're not going to eat today because I'm going to keep the Sabbath. That's not going to happen. You still have to go and get food for your animals every day. There's no such thing as Sabbath if you're keeping the animal. That's so it's possible that we may have forgotten it, rather than it being an inclusion by the heathens that transcribed the Bible from our culture. So today, this is what I want to discuss, and I'm going to use the Bible to show you that as at the time of Abraham, there was no such thing as 7-day Sabbath. The 7-day Sabbath started with Moses, who you call Moses. His real name, of course, is Shemaiah. That's when it started. Okay, now let's go to the children of the Most High. Do you know that the ancient Egyptians kept the Sabbath? Do you know that? The ancient Egyptians, they kept the Sabbath. So if you have researched the Sabbath, you will see something like this. Today, I want to explain it from the Bible so that you understand it. Now let's start. Okay, now we'll start from the book of Jubilees. And the book of Jubilees, the angel told Shemaiah, Moses, that there was a time when people were not keeping the Sabbath. Before the Sabbath was made known to mankind on earth, that even them in heaven kept it. Let me show you that. Book of Jubilees, chapter 2, verse 30. It says that the angels in heaven kept the Sabbath long before it was made known to mankind to keep it on earth. Book of Jubilees 2, verse 30. So you understand that there was a time when the Sabbath was not made known to humans on the planet. That's number one. Now, if you look at this chart I showed in my earlier video when I talked about the Sabbath, I talked about the patriarchs. You see, when the Most High created mankind, the only thing he asked us to do was to take care of the planet. He didn't ask us to worship him. He didn't ask us to bring sacrifice and offer to him. He didn't ask us to do any of that. The only thing he asked mankind was to take care of this planet. That's all. Obey him, take care of the planet. That was the only thing the Most High of Majesty requested of mankind. Obey the Lord your God, take care of the planet. It don't finish. That's it. Now, later on, like I explained in that video, different before, the Most High didn't ask him to do it. He did it as a sacrifice to the Most High, and it became pleasing to the Most High. And once it was pleasing to the Most High accepted it, and it became a thing. And from then onwards, the children of Adam started offering sacrifices. And of course, they did. That's why Cain and Abel went to offer sacrifice. Remember, Adam offered sacrifice with plants, Cain offered sacrifice with animals. He didn't do it with a good heart. Abel, on the other hand, offered with plants. And he did it with a good heart, like his father did. And the Most High showed through Cain and Abel that he only accepts sacrifice that was offered in good heart. So Adam started offering burnt offering to the Most High. Then Abel showed that that burnt offering must be done with pure of heart, with a good heart, and not like Cain. The Most High does not always accept it. Sometimes he can reject it when it's not done. If you read the book of Genesis, the Most High told Cain to be weary of sin, that he has to conquer sin. If he doesn't conquer sin, sin will overwhelm him. And that's why the Most High did not accept his sacrifice. But the offering of burnt offering started with Adam. And after that, his children started doing it. Now we go over to Noah, who is the next patriarch. Okay, Noah, he offered the burnt offering that Adam did when the sheep stopped in Mount Ararat. Noah came out and offered a burnt offering, which he has learned from his fathers, from Adam, from Noah, from Lamech. They kept on offering the sacrifice to the Most High. But before then, it was not done. Now, Noah also started some things that is new himself. And again, brothers and sisters, just go and read the book of Jubilees. I think the book of Jubilees, chapter 6. It talks about Noah instituted the feast of the new moons. The feast of the new moons, because the new moons marked when he was given order to build a ship, when he was given order to come down from the ship, and so many other things. So he instituted the feast of the new moons. Before Noah, nobody was doing new moon. Noah was the one that started it. Cain and Abel did not do new moon. Enoch did not do new moon. It doesn't mean that they were sinning for not doing it. No, it just had not started. When Noah established the feast of the new moon, okay, that became a thing. The Most High liked it and it became established. The next thing that Noah started was the feast on the third month, which is called the feast of first fruits. We still do it today in Igbo land. Those of you who are very grounded on Inomenani, you will know that we still do this feast in Igbo land today. The feast of first fruit. It started with Noah. Before Noah, nobody kept it. And Noah, of course, did not keep the Sabbath. Anyone who have seen where the Most High wrote, the Bible said that Noah, Adam, or this one kept the 7-day Sabbath, please show me. I have not seen. After Noah, another notable patriarch is Abraham. If you remember, Abraham actually was raised by Noah and Shem. Noah and Shem raised Abraham. They raised him, not his father. His father was a pagan, worshipping idol with Nimrod and the rest of them. So he learned to worship the one true God under Noah and Shem. And Abraham continued with the burnt offering that Adam started and Noah kept. He continued with it. Abraham, if you read the book of Jubilees, Abraham continued with the feast of new moons that Noah instituted. He continued with the feast on the third month, which is called the feast of first fruit. Abraham continued with that feast. Then he now instituted his own. He now started his own thing. And he started the feast on the 7th month. Okay, now let's read some scriptures so that we'll get understanding. The book of Jubilees, chapter 6, and we're going to start from verse 25. It says, on the new moon of the first month, it's talking about Noah. The angel was telling Shemaiah, Moses, what Noah did. It says, on the new moon of the first month, he was told to make for himself an ark. And on that day, the earth was dry, and he saw from the opened ark the earth. On the new moon of the fourth month, the mouths of the depths of the bottomless pit beneath were closed. On the new moon of the seventh month, all the mouths of the abyss of the earth were observed, and the waters began to descend into them. On the new moon of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains were seen, and Noah was glad. Because of this, he ordained them, that is the new moons, he ordained them for himself as feasts for a memorial forever. And thus they are ordained. Noah, these things happened on the new moon of the first month, the new moon of the fourth month, new moon of the seventh month, and new moon of the 10th month. I stated in one of my videos that these are the 4 new moons I keep. I don't keep new moon every month. I keep the 4 new moons that Noah kept. And the scripture tells us here, the book of Jubilees chapter 6, in verse 28, it says, because these things happened on the new moon, Noah ordained the new moons as holy days forever for himself. And since he did that for himself, they remain ordained forever. What Noah instituted became instituted forever. That is Noah. Okay. Now, let's go and read what Abraham did as well. Okay, now we'll go to the book of Jubilees chapter 14, verse 1. It says, Jubilees chapter 14, verse 1, it says, after these things, in the 4th year of this week, on the new moon of the 3rd month, the word of the Lord came to Abram, or Abiam. Okay, now that shows you that Abraham continued keeping the feast of the new moon. Now let's go to chapter 15, book of Jubilees, chapter 15. It says, in the 5th year, or the 4th week of this Jubilee, in the 3rd month, in the middle of the month, Abram celebrated the feast of first fruits of the grain harvest. Brothers and sisters, remember I told you that Noah was the one that started the feast of first fruits. Noah started the feast of first fruits. Okay, and Abraham kept that feast. You can see it in the book of Jubilees chapter 15 verse 1 that Abraham kept that feast of first fruits. Feast of first fruit is called Onombola Koko. That is what we keep in Igbo land. I've made videos to describe this as a feast in Igbo land that we still keep. The children of Abraham, if you look at the traditions of the Bantu, and I think there's one sister that I heard was describing that feast. I've forgotten that video where she described that feast. They still keep a similar feast because our father Abraham kept it, and so all his children kept the same feast. Now let's go again. Let me show you where Abraham now started his own feast on the 7th month called the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay, now let's go to the book of Jubilees. And the reason I'm using the book of Jubilees is that the book of Jubilees was very detailed on the activities of Abraham and his family. You can see some of those in the book of Joshua as well, but the book of Jubilees is basically zoomed into Abraham's family and their activities. Unlike what the Bible did or any other, these things are still in the Bible. You will see them in the Bible as well. Book of Jubilees chapter 22, it says, in the first week, in the 44th Jubilee, in the 2nd year, that is the year in which Abraham died, Isaac and Ishmael came from the well of the oath to celebrate the Feast of Weeks, which is the feast of the first fruit of the harvest to Abraham, their father. And Abraham rejoiced because his 2 sons had come. So his children, they came back from their journey, from wherever they sojourned. They came back to celebrate it with their parents. These feasts are important, and Abraham taught his children, and he was happy that they came back to do what he had taught them. Now let's go. Let me show you where Abraham instituted the Feast of Tabernacles, the 7-day feast. So In the book of Jubilees, chapter 16, in verse 29, Abraham celebrated the Feast of Tabernacles. He celebrated the Feast of Tabernacles and he ordained it for his family forever. Now let's look at it so that we'll be reading it here. It says, from verse 28, it says, Jubilees chapter 16, verse 28, it says, and we blessed him forever and all his offspring after him throughout all the generations of the earth, because he celebrated this festival in its season according to the testimony of the heavenly tablets. For this reason, it is ordained in the heavenly tablet concerning Israel that they shall celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days with joy in the 7th month, acceptable before the Lord as a statute forever throughout their generations, every year. Children of the Most High, if you see one of my videos in which I talk about the biblical feast, this Feast of Tabernacle is the one that is most celebrated in Igbo land today. It is called Onwa Asatọ. Most villages still celebrate it today. It's celebrated for almost a week. There are activities that are done for almost a week. Most villages still celebrate it today. I was discussing with someone from East Africa, a Bantu origin, and he told me of a feast that they celebrate just about the same time, the 7th month, which usually falls between September to maybe November, that period, that they celebrate a feast in that same week that synchronizes with this particular feast. Okay, it's called Onwa Asatọ. We still celebrate it today in Igbo land. This is the feast that Abraham started. Now, let me show you. In verse 30, it said, to this there is no limit of days, for it is ordained forever regarding Israel, that they shall celebrate it and dwell in tents, and set wreaths in their head, and take leafy boughs and willows from the brook. Abraham took branches of palm trees and the fruit of good and pleasant trees, and every day going around the altar with the branches 7 times a day. Brothers and sisters, branches of palm trees is what we use most times to celebrate Onwa Asatọ. There are leaves and a whole lot of celebration that goes on. Is that colorful? When you are reading this thing, it will be calling to mind how this is celebrated in Igbo land today. There is no mention of Abraham keeping the Sabbath, okay, because it was not kept as at the time he was alive. The Sabbath started with Moses. Now let's go to the Bible. Let me show you that, because like I said before I started, the Egyptians also kept the 7-day Sabbath. Ancient Egyptians, they kept the Sabbath. So now you understand that it started with Moses. Let me go on and explain that to you. So when our ancestors were enslaved in Egypt, Moses was a Hebrew who grew up in the palace of the Pharaoh. And he had freedom to move around anywhere. Our ancestors, on the other hand, the rest of the people, the Hebrews, were in a place called Goshen. They weren't in Egypt's mainland. They were in Goshen, where they are working, building brick without straw, working every day, every night, having to meet their quota on a daily basis. Now, Moses occasionally will go and visit his brothers and sisters in Goshen and see them. He will go and see his parents occasionally. Now, what happened was that Moses went one day and saw how they were working, and he felt bad, and he went back to Pharaoh and pleaded with him that he should give our ancestors 1 day of rest. That was the same day that the Most High, the God of the Hebrews, rested, to give our ancestors 1 day of rest. And that plea was accepted. And Pharaoh now passed the law, not only in Goshen where the Hebrews stayed, but also in Egypt. And that is why the ancient Egyptians kept the Sabbath. That is why if you research the Sabbath, you see that the ancient Egyptians also kept it. Because when Moses asked Pharaoh for it, it was passed both in Goshen for the Hebrews and in Egypt as well. So you need to understand this thing. You don't just take it because your preacher says so, keep the Sabbath holy. You don't just take it like that. You need to understand the scripture. When you read it, you connect it with things you already know. Let's go and read it. It's in the book of Joshua, chapter 70, verse 41. The book of Joshua, chapter 70, verse 41, it says, "And the day arrived when Moses went to Goshen to see his brothers, that he saw that the children of the Hebrews in their burdens and hard labor, and Moses was grieved on their account. And Moses returned to Egypt, and came to the house of Pharaoh, and came before the king, and Moses bowed down before the king. And Moses said to Pharaoh, I pray you, my lord, I have come to seek a small request from you. Turn not away my face empty. And Pharaoh said to him, Speak. And Moses said to Pharaoh, Let there be given to your servants, the Hebrews, who are in Goshen, one day to rest therein from their labor. And the king answered Moses and said, Behold, I have lifted up your face in this thing to grant you your request. And Pharaoh ordered an announcement to be issued throughout Egypt and Goshen. Moses requested for it to be ordered in Goshen where the Hebrews stayed, but Pharaoh ordered it both in Egypt and in Goshen, saying, To you, all the children of the Hebrews, thus says the king, for 6 days you shall do your work and labor, but on the 7th day you shall rest and shall not perform any work. Thus shall you do all the things as the king and Moses, the son of Bathiah, have commanded. Bathiah, of course, is the adopted mother of Moses, who was the Pharaoh's daughter. And Moses rejoiced at this thing which the king had granted to him, and all the children of the Hebrews did as Moses ordered them. For this thing was from the Lord to the children of the Hebrews, for the Lord had begun to remember the children of the Hebrews to save them for the sake of their fathers. And the Lord was with Moses, and his fame went throughout Egypt. And Moses became great in the eyes of all the Egyptians, and in the eyes of all the children of the Hebrews, seeking good for his people, the Hebrews, and speaking words of peace regarding them to the king. That is it. That's the book of Joshua. This is basically the end of the book, chapter 70 in the book of Joshua. That is how the Sabbath started. So Abraham could not have kept the 7-day Sabbath because Abraham was not alive as at the time we were enslaved in Egypt. The children of Abraham scattered all over Africa could not have kept it because they were not there as slaves in Egypt when Moses requested for this. It does not negate the fact that the Most High rested on the 7th day, but even after the Most High rested, the Most High did not ask humans to observe that 7th day. He never did. He rested on that day. It's when people start observing a particular feast and the Most High likes it, it becomes ordained in the heavenly tablet. And I've given you example of the patriarchs, first with Adam offering sacrifices. The Most High didn't ask him to, but when he offered it, the Most High liked it, it became ordained. Then with Noah, starting the feast of first fruit, the Most High didn't ask him, but and the feast of the new moons, they didn't ask him to do it, but he did it and the Most High liked it, and it became ordained. Then with Abraham, he started the feast of tabernacles, and then they didn't ask him to do that, but he celebrated it and it became ordained. And again with Moses, Moses started this 7-day Sabbath. And he also started the process of building a tabernacle for the Most High. The Most High ordered him to do that, actually. Before then, Abraham did not build a tabernacle. Abraham would just put together stones and offer sacrifice and go. He didn't build a tabernacle. It all started with Moses. You need to know what happened and when it happened if you're going to understand scripture. So I wanted to bring this out here to teach this, mainly because I had a heated conversation with the sister. I like the idea that people are at least, not everybody is supposed to agree with me all the time. That's fine. I like the idea that people are at least standing by their convictions. So I was pleased with what the sister did. But it's important for people to understand that this is what the scripture is about. This is what people are, those who are Christians, if you're actually doing Bible studies, this is what you're supposed to be studying in Bible. But if instead you go there and they teach you, that God is going to give you £1,000,000, which apparently he has not done. So, brothers and sisters, so you understand what the patriarchs did, and in that the context of the conversation was that those of you who cannot keep the weekly Sabbath, you don't have to. You can start small and keep what, like Abraham did, keep the feast days, and gradually graduate into the weekly ones, because there are people whose job will not let them keep the weekly Sabbath. Some of you are farmers, like I said earlier, and you have to tend to your flocks. Some of you are doctors, some of you are firemen, some of you are doing work, or maybe offshore or onshore or whatever, that will not let you keep the weekly Sabbath. So you keep the ones you can. It's all acceptable in the eyes of the Most High. The Most High sees the work, not the action, actually, because He knows that. He sees the effort. So this is not trying to undermine the importance of the Sabbath. The Most High knows I will not do that. But I'm just trying to make it known that in the world we live today, there are people whose job will not let them keep that. And they are not sinning, that they are not committing a sin in the eyes of the Most High, because the Most High knows. And there are things they can keep. And there are people in the biblical times who have kept those things, and they were still favorites in the eyes of the Most High. So may the Most High of Majesty bless each and every one of you. Salam.